All right, so in this lesson, we are going to be translating problems into an equation. So when we're given a word problem, and it'll usually look like a paragraph, sometimes it'll be easy, so don't get intimidated as soon as you see a bunch of words on the page. So your first step when we're trying to translate these word problems is to read the problem carefully. First, we need to decide what are the facts and what are our unknowns. Then from there, you can choose your variable. You can pick whatever letter you want for your unknown. Generally, the last thing you read in the paragraph is going to be what you're looking for. And then from there, you're going to go back, reread the problem, and then you're going to write your equation. So, in this first example, it wants us to translate this into an equation. Okay, it says, Marta has twice as much money as Heidi. So first thing we should be doing is defining our variable. So our unknowns is we need to know how much money Marta has and Heidi. So we could choose a variable. What letters do you want to pick for? So it says Marta has twice as much money as Heidi. Together they have $36. How much money does each have? So right here, I can see that Marta has twice as much money as Heidi. So I'm going to give Heidi a letter, and then I'm going to do twice as much to that letter. What letter do you want to use for Heidi? Okay. And then Marta has twice as much. So what would Marta's amount be? 2H. All right. So then now we need to write an equation. Now, when it says together they have, what do you think we're going to do with that H and that 2H? Add them. Okay. So our letter here is we're going to let H equals Heidi and 2H is Marta. And then our number sentence or our equation, we're going to add them, Heidi plus Marta, and it equals 36. Make sense? And that's how you're going to define your variables, and then you're going to write your equations. Now, in this, all we're doing is writing the equations and defining the variables. We're not actually solving them. All right, so let's try the next example. We have a wooden rod that's 60 inches long, and it's sawed into two pieces. One piece is 4 inches longer than the other. And what are the lengths of the pieces? So what do we want to define? What do we have to define here? Let me see. So we're going to say how much each wood piece is, correct? All right, so let me just go to the next slide because it actually has pictures. Okay. So here we go. We're going to use the 3 steps. First thing we're going to do is define our variable. They've decided that they're going to use X to be the shorter length, and then the other length, the longer length, is going to be the X plus 4, because it's going to be the same size piece of wood, which is our variable, and then they're adding 4 to the longer piece. So X plus 4 is going to be our longer length. Does that make sense? All right, then it says here, write a sentence or an equation. So how long was the whole piece together? 60. Okay, so if I know this piece plus this piece, and then it's going to equal 60. So my equation here is going to be X, and then I'm going to do the X plus 4. And it equals 60. Now, because all I have in my problem is addition, I don't really need to show this in parentheses. So either answer here would be acceptable. So this is what you're going to do tomorrow on the test, is just define the variable for each missing unknown, and then you're going to write an equation. We're not trying to figure out how much it is. Okay, now that's pretty much the homework, but let's try and do some of these together because your homework is 1 through 21 all. So let's try and do some of the odds together, and then I'm going to give you time to do the evens, and I'm also going to give you a test review. So right now I want everyone to try and do number 1. I want you to translate that problem into an equation. Okay, define your variable. So we're going to give a letter to Luke and then something else to Sam. So which one is just going to be our single letter, Luke or Sam? Sam. All right, what letter do you want to use for him? Should we just use X for everything? Okay, so Sam is going to be X. How much is Luke going to be? X plus 5. And again, notice the word together, that they have $73. So here, my equation for number 1 is going to be X for Sam. Then I got to add in Luke's amount. And we know together they have $73. Everybody good on that one? Let's try number 3. There's a total of 12 people on the jury. And then it says there were 4 more men than women. So here, I need to know how many men there were. So I'm going to let W represent women. Or let's just do X for everything. So X is going to represent women. What is men going to be? Good. What's going to be my equation here?
X plus parentheses, X plus 4 equals 26.
And what's it equal?
Equals 12.
Beautiful. Okay, that's a 4 in there. My stylus isn't working. There we go. All right, so everybody understand how we're doing these. We're not actually trying to figure out the answer to these problems. We're just practicing setting up equations. Let's try number 5. Okay, it says Lee bicycled 3 kilometers farther than Wing. The sum of the distances is going to be 25 kilometers. How far did each bicyclist go? So they're already showing us a nice little picture here. They're telling us Wing is W, and then Lee is going to be Wing's distance plus 3. Everybody see that? So this time they're telling us to use a W. So here, my equation, W for Wing, and then Lee is 3 plus W, or W plus 3. Let's go ahead and put it as W plus 3. And then we know that in total they bicycled 25. Everybody good on that? Now the answer to number 7 is right there. It's already solved for you. So this one's a little tricky. It says Lisa walked 8 kilometers more than Tim, and then Lisa walked twice as far as Tim. How far did each walk? So if Tim is X and Lisa, she walked 8 more, X plus 8, and then it also says in the next sentence here, Lisa walked twice as far as Tim, so 2X. So Lisa is equal to Lisa. So if I do x plus 8 is equal to 2x. Those making sense? You guys getting the hang of these? And before I do the test review, let's jump to the next page and let's do 13 and 15 from the second page. So here, let's try one of these. Now, it says sometimes drawing a picture will help you. So here it says a ribbon 9 feet long is cut into 2 pieces. One piece is 1 foot longer than the other. What are the lengths of the 2 pieces? Now, if you don't need a picture, we could just translate this as we read it. But let's go ahead. So we have our ribbon here, and it says that it's 9 feet. And then it says it's cut into 2 pieces. So we could say this is our first piece, and then our other piece is going to be the X, and then it's 1 foot longer. So what would be our equation here that we would set up for these 2 pieces of ribbon?
X plus 1 equals 9.
Beautiful. So it's sort of the same thing that we did before with the wood or even the walking distance. We know that the first piece of the ribbon is X and the second piece is the 1 foot longer. So X plus 1 equals 9. Okay, let's try number 15, the rectangle question. I'm going to draw a rectangle here. It says the length of a rectangle is twice its width. If the perimeter is 60, find the dimensions of the rectangle. Okay, so what are we gonna label as our first variable? Anybody have what we want to label here? Okay, so remember this could be our length. And this side will be our width. So let's go back and read our question. So it says the length of a rectangle is twice its width. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to let the width be represented as W. And then the length, if I go back and read, is twice the width. So for the length, I'm going to let length equal 2 times W. How do we find perimeter? Do you remember that formula? What is it? Add all the sides, okay? What else do we know about the sides of a rectangle? Simone?
Let's say we could do 2L plus 2W.
Okay. So one of the formulas we saw on the other page was perimeter could be represented as 2L plus 2W. So if I take what my L equals, I could just do that, like she said. So I know the perimeter on this question is 60. So I could do 2 times the 2W, which was my length, and then just the 2W. So you can just leave it like that. Now, if you wanted to multiply these two and make it 4W plus 2W, you can. We really haven't gotten into simplifying, combining like terms. So you could just leave this equation like this, and you'll plug it in. However, you're not going to have to know any of these formulas for the test tomorrow. Okay, they're going to be more like the other page. All right, so let's go ahead. This was 1-6. Let's go ahead and do a test review, and I'm going to tell you what kind of questions to focus on for tomorrow's test. Let me go here and I'll do a blank page. So tomorrow you have a test. It is going to cover sections 1.1 to 1.6. So in lesson 1.1, that's where we were introduced to the grouping symbols. So you're going to have a question where you're going to get some grouping symbols. So let's say you have 2 times 4 plus 5 times 6. So you'll get a question like that where you'll have to complete the grouping symbols and then add it up, just like you did on the quiz. Okay, that was 1-1. Then in 1-2, this is where we saw PEMDAS. Okay, so here you're going to get a question where you're going to need to follow order of operations. So for example, and actually you're going to get 2 of these where you're going to follow order of operations. So remember PEMDAS. Now we haven't talked about the exponents yet, but what you're going to do is always do the grouping symbols first, the parentheses, and then from there you're going to work on the multiplication and division, and then you would do the adding and subtracting. Remember, these are equal and these are equal, so you always work left to right if you have just multiplication and division left in your problem. So for example, you might get a question that is going to look like something like this. Let's say we have 8 plus 3 times 2 divided by 4 plus 3. What would you do first?
3 times 2 on the numerator.
Okay. And then what else could we do?
Then add the 8 plus 6 to get 14.
Okay. And then what about the bottom? What are we going to do there?
Just add 4 plus 3 and 7.
Okay. And then what do we do?
Divide, and then you get a whole number 2.
Perfect. So you're going to have to do order of operations. Also in this lesson, and you're going to get 2 of these where you're going to, actually 3. Also from 1-2, so you're going to get 2 of these, the PEMDAS questions. You're going to get 3 questions where I'm going to give you the value of a variable and you're going to solve. So for example, I'm going to tell you that x equals 3, y equals 4, and then I'm going to say solve 2x or evaluate 2x plus 7. Some of the questions will use x, some will use y. You'll have more than one variable. So here you would just plug it in, multiply, and then add. So you're going to get 3 of these, where I'm going to tell you what the variables equal, and then I'm going to give you an expression where you're going to replace the value of the variable and solve it, just like you did on the quiz. Then in 1-3, this is where we were given a domain. So you might be given a domain and it might say x is an element of 0, 1, 2, 3. And then it's going to say find the value of x. So for example, it might say 3x equals 9. And then you're going to tell me what x equals. Okay, you'll plug them all in. And then once you do this and you replace 3 times 0, you're going to find that one doesn't work. 3 times 1, that one doesn't work. Then do 3 times 2. That one doesn't work. 3 times 3. And you'll find that that's the answer. So you would say for this problem, x is equal to 3, or you can put it in the set brackets. Now, also remember, if I have my same domain here, the 0, 1, 2, 3, let's say I have something that shows 3x equals 12. Notice when I try to set it equal to 12, none of this domain will work, so my answer is the empty set or the null set. Now you also might get a question where every single question will work. Let's say I have x plus 3 equals x plus 3. And then you would just list all the numbers from the domain. Everybody good with working with the domain? This was the same thing we did on the quiz. So you're going to have 4 of these where you're going to plug in and tell me the answer. Then in 1-4, this is where we translated the expressions. And again, no formulas. All you're going to do is translate. So if I give you something, let's see, and there will be 3 of these from 1-4. So you might get a question that's going to say, 3 more than a number. And then you're going to translate it. 3 plus, and you can pick whatever letter you want. So it'll be a phrase like that. We saw that box from the notes where it had all the words that meant addition, all the words that meant subtraction, all the words that meant multiplication and division. And then you're going to have 3 questions. From 1-5. Same thing, but now we're writing equations. And again, no formulas. We're just going to translate. So, for example, I might say 1/2 of a number is 10. And then you're going to translate that. And you can do 1/2 x equals 10. The word is the equal sign. So you'll have 3 questions like that. And then the last one, or last section, is 1-6, and you have 4 questions from that. You're going to define your variables and write your equations. And they're going to look just like the questions at the beginning of this homework. No formulas. So I'm not going to expect you to remember the area formula or the perimeter. Okay, it'll be questions about like pieces of wood or people's ages, things like that. All right, any questions on what's on tomorrow's test? All right, so there are 20 questions in total. And again, the first 10 are just like you did on the quiz. The last 10 are the new material. All right, so what you're going to do now, and we only have like about 5 minutes, is I'm going to actually put up the answers for tonight's homework. I want you to take a picture of it so that way as you're doing it tonight, you can check them. And then when you get in here tomorrow, if you have any questions before the test on 1-6, you can ask me. All right, so let me find the 1-6 and you can get your cameras ready.